Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. It's been a little while since my last mod, and something I've been doing during this downtime is researching what fuel grade I should or can be putting in my Silverado. If you follow the channel, you know I recently upgraded from a 2019 Silverado with the 5.3 liter V8 to the 6.2 liter V8 in my 2020 Silverado Trail Boss. And one of the caveats of that 6.2 liter engine is that it's highly recommended by GM to put 93 octane in it. So what does that mean? How does that affect my performance or the health or lifespan of my engine? Let's talk about that. Because there were actually a lot of things that I thought were true about the fuel grades that turned out to be myths. So hopefully this video is beneficial to some of you. But this is Truck Ownership 101. I'm Spencer Evelbach. Class is now in session. Okay, let's first start by debunking that myth. And that myth was that the higher the fuel grade, the more power is in the fuel, the better performance you'll get. And, to say that 87 has more energy in it than 93 is simply not true. What those octane ratings actually are is they determine the fuel level's compressibility before it would pre-detonate itself just due to compression. So a 93 octane can take a lot more compression before a pre-detonation would occur than 87 can. So what that means is if you don't have an engine tuned and designed for that higher compressibility, running that fuel in your engine gives you absolutely no performance increase. So if you've got an engine that recommends 87, don't bother spending extra on the 93. You will not see any performance increase out of it. So why does the 6.2 recommend it? Well, let's take a look at some of this research I did. And I pulled up the specs for both engines. So the 5.3 V8 and the new body styles has that dynamic fuel management where it can drop down to as few as like 2 cylinders. And that generation of the 5.3 is known as the L84 engine. And it's got a displacement of 5.3 liters, obviously, and it has a compression ratio of 11:1. And like I said, so that engine is designed and intended for running 87. So that's what you should be putting in it. The 6.2, however, again, that newer generation with the dynamic fuel management is categorized as the L87 engine, and that has a compression ratio of 11.5:1. So a combination of that higher compression and just the physically larger pistons and everything that is more tuned to a higher compression, thusly requiring or highly recommending, we'll get to that, that 93 octane rating, that premium fuel. Couple things. So what would happen if you put a lower octane in a higher performance engine? Well, let's take a look at the owner's manual and see what it says. Let's see, 93 highly recommended for best performance and fuel economy. So that almost contradicts itself, doesn't it? To say that you're going to lose performance and fuel economy if you run a lower grade fuel, when we just learned that there's no potential energy gain from switching to those two. So what's that about? Well, the thing that is the concern of detonating fuel prematurely is engine knock. And engine knock is basically an explosion happening prematurely too early in the combustion cycle, and it forces your pistons a lot of energy when they're not meant to be, pushes them in a direction they don't want to be pushed, right? And that action can create a knocking noise and can damage your engine. But your engine has knock sensors, at least this engine does, and it can detect that and adjust itself to compensate for that, to prevent the knock from happening by adjusting the timings, adjusting how much air fuel mixture or how much fuel gets entered, delays when the fuel is entered, that kind of thing, to stop that premature detonation. Now, when those things happen, that will indeed affect your performance and your fuel economy. So if you have a performance engine and it's recommended but not required, you can put, as the manual says, you can put octane as low as 87 in it, but you're not going to get the performance out of it, which you're not getting why you paid for the premium engine. So it does lead to the advice of, if you bought the fancy engine, put fancy fuel in it, right? It does give you some recommendations to listen for knocking. If you hear that kind of stuff, stop running the lower grades. When is it most likely to knock is when you're really trying to push your engine, get the most out of it, trying to get the peak horsepower, peak torque, when you're working your engine, where it's maximizing that air-fuel mixture, trying to get the biggest explosion, that kind of thing. So for me personally, I live in Minnesota, and it's really hard to find 93 octane anywhere. The premium is usually 91 at all the pumps. I've been running that for the past 3,000 miles, and I haven't noticed any problems. I certainly haven't been hearing any knock, and my fuel economy has been within the EPA estimates of city, around 15-ish, 14, somewhere around there, and that's kind of how I primarily drive my truck right now. I drop my kids off to daycare a couple blocks away from me. I drive through 4 roundabouts, and then I'm at work in town here. So I certainly think the 91 isn't hurting anything. Actually, just for a bit of research, my last time I filled up was just yesterday. I was down like 20 miles left on the tank, and I just filled up with 87, because I know during this tank of gas, I'm not going to be pulling any heavy trailers, and like I said, I'm not going to be stomping on it, really working the engine. So this will be a good test to see if I notice 2 things I'm going to really be paying attention for. First off is engine knock. If my engine is knocking, that means the fail safes or the countermeasures are not working, and I am damaging my engine, which is going to feel really foolish of me. If I notice that, I'm going to immediately stop. I'm going to put an octane booster into that tank, and I'm never going to do that again. But as GM says, you can do it, and I'm not going to be abusing it. I really don't see that scenario playing out. What I may see is a drop in fuel economy. And if I do see that, then I know my engine is detecting knock and it is taking the countermeasures to prevent it, which will affect my fuel economy. So if that's happening, I know I probably shouldn't keep doing that, as far as, just for my own sake. That's probably not a good thing for your engine, to be actively making steps to prevent itself from harming itself. So that'll be interesting. And that's, like I said, that's kind of what I'm going to do. But certainly, hopefully this summer, if we get a camper, and I know I'm going to be pulling it, I'm definitely going to be looking for 91, or if even better, 93 octane. So, but that's kind of what I've learned. I hope this information is useful to some of you. I'd actually, if any of you do have the 6.2, I'd love it if you threw a comment in and let me know what you're doing, what's working for you. Maybe you've had it for more than a couple of months like me, and maybe you've learned a thing or two that you can share. I'd really appreciate that. Subscribe if you haven't. I got a lot more content coming. My next video is actually going to be about tinting just the driver and passenger front windows. Personally, when I pull up to a stop sign or stoplight, I kind of feel like I'm in a fishbowl. I definitely am a little jealous of people with front window tint, but I'm not going to go super crazy with it, which may look bad if it's not the same tint as the back. So subscribe, check out that video. It's definitely going to be for noobs, and I'm going to go with a modest tint, and we'll find out if that looks cool or looks silly. So you can learn from my experience. So that's all I got for you guys. Thanks a ton for watching. Until next time, class dismissed.